Well, welcome. Today's webinar is very exciting. We're going to be talking about the new Totara 13 Talent Experience Platform. So welcome. Um, Today I have a participant helping me out. Her name is Erin Milanese, and she will be helping with the chat and helping me look at questions and so on. So thanks so much for attending. And it's 1 o'clock. We are recording, and let's see, and we'll get started. Okay. I'm going to go one more slide. My name is Dr. Tammy Stevens-Frame, and I'm the CEO of eClass for Learning. This is my contact information, and if you registered for the webinar, you will receive a recording of the link, even if you weren't able to attend today. I really encourage questions in the chat, but if you weren't able to attend live, please feel free to email those to me as well. When I send the link to the recording, you'll also have a copy of my contact information there as well. Okay, let's start talking about the platform, and that's why we're here today. Totara 13 really is exciting. It's a real game changer, and we've been waiting for it for a long time, and a lot of development has gone into it. So it does have a different way of thinking about it. We knew for a long time that it would have several components to it. And one thing that was surprising to me is I thought that maybe it would be sort of like 3 separate platforms and they would have SSO between them. But that really isn't the case. The 3 are really integrated together. But one of the advantages of Totara is you have this freedom to learn, right? Where you can customize and decide what features to turn on and off. Well, that continues even more so in this iteration of Totara 13, but it also has to do with purchasing. So there are 3 components, and you can purchase 1, 2, or all 3. And they all cost the same, but if you purchase 2, there's a pretty big discount. If you purchase 3, there's an even greater discount. And I won't go into cost questions today, but I will be following up with all of our clients that signed up for this webinar and talk about what that would mean for you if you wanted to move forward with Totara 13. Okay, I'm going to talk about each of these components from sort of a philosophical view, and then we'll see how they play together in the platform when they're all turned on. So Totara Learn would be the LMS portion, and that would look a lot like what you're used to. And in Totara 12, what we often did is if you weren't using parts, we just turned those off. But you could have them even not part of your code base and not even purchase them if you didn't want to. So that's the learning management piece of it. Another thing that I wanted to mention too is if you aren't ready to move to Totara 13 right now, I think everybody eventually will want to because the features are so cool, but it might not be the right time and place for you. Totara is still very committed to supporting Totara 12, so it's not an emergency to move to 13 right away. All right, so let's talk about Totara Engage. Totara Engage is not an LMS. Totara Engage is called an LXP, or Learning Experience Platform. So when you think of an LMS, it's very hierarchical when you think about it. A course designer is making a lot of decisions for the learner. They might determine a learning path. Maybe there's some social elements like a discussion forum, but often that content creator is deciding what that forum will be about. And they decide what content that you'll see, and often in what order and when, and what will open, and what counts as completion, and things like that. Totara Engage is the opposite. It's very organic, and depending on how you configure it, you can give learners a lot of power in sharing things across the organization. So Totara Engage has workplaces that are collaborative, that learners can join. They can add resources, perhaps maybe even from something like their Microsoft Teams account very easily, and share those and collaborate and have their own discussion boards that they suggest and work on things together. Another way to think about Totara Engage is our learners are used to a lot of tools like this out in social media. I often think that Engage has elements that remind me a lot of LinkedIn. But you as an organization might have information that's proprietary that you don't want out for the whole web to have accessible. Maybe you're a nonprofit, and part of what your value proposition is the knowledge that the community brings that becomes members. And if that's out there on the internet and anybody can access it, what value are you bringing to become a membership? So this would be more closed and more proprietary for your organization. Now, Totara Perform, I used to, when I would show Totara Learn, often say that Totara Learn was kind of LMS, but also an HR platform with a lot of HR tools. Well, Totara Perform has all of those tools, but I would say that the UI on it has really gotten much, much, much better. It also is more of a continuous improvement toolbox. And so before, I think there was a lot of emphasis on what Totara called the appraisal, or sometimes we call that your annual review. This toolbox is much more about continually giving feedback so employees can move towards competencies and goals and aspirational positions and continue to grow and learn in both traditional and non-traditional ways. One thing is there's a lot of tools to create your own workflows and your own methods for doing this. So Totara Perform could be an entire webinar unto itself. And that's probably going to be our next webinar that we're going to really take a deeper dive into, because it's so powerful and so different there. So there's quite a bit there for improving your organization. And I'll be talking about that philosophy as we go through the demo. Okay, Erin, how are we doing? Do we have any questions right now that I should address?
Claudia asked if you have a sense for how long they'll support Totara 12. I was able to find on their website that it looks through at least 2023, but I didn't know if you had anything else to say on that.
Well, I know that there's a big commitment to continue to do that. And I had not heard that there was an end date. I know that was very important. I know a lot of people have customizations and things, and this is a big leap. And not everybody is going to be ready to do that right away. So I know that there's a very big commitment to continue. I had not heard an end date. So thanks, Erin, for looking that up. Yeah, I think right now the answer might be indefinitely. We don't have like a shadow or a closing date for that. Okay. All right, we went through that slide. I think I have my slides slightly out of order. These are services that eClass for Learning provides. I'm often surprised that a lot of our clients do some of them and then had no idea that we do other things, but we are a full solution e-learning provider. So we provide open source LMS such as Totara. We also do course development, and through Totara, we have thousands of ready-made courses that can be purchased through the content marketplace. We are excellent on onboarding and support. We do advanced reporting and analytics. We offer e-commerce solutions. We can host Totara. We can integrate it with systems like your HR platform or Active Directory or what have you. And we can also customize and build on the platforms as well, which is why we like open source platforms like Totara. Okay, also just remember that you can put things for Erin to moderate in the Q&A. Another thing that I would love, if you're thinking about it, I would love it if you had ideas for future topics of webinars that you would like to see. So that would be another thing that you can put in the chat for me. Okay, I am going to put this link in the chat, and this is an important one. And when I send the link for the webinar, I will also put this separately. I think this is a really helpful matrix that shows the differences in features between the versions. So I've been referring to this quite a lot lately. And let me just put, and we'll go here. We'll open up that link. Okay. Hopefully. That's good. Okay. So as we're going through, it might be helpful for you to look at this one. Let me try and get rid of here. And what I like to do is when I'm looking at different features, or when you're just considering, is now the time for us, or do we want to start planning for this? What you might want to do is scroll through here and see what things are in 12, especially if you're in 12, and what new features you would gain in 13. So I think that is a really, really helpful resource. Okay, so back to here. I think the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to look at the platform. Okay. And by the way, Erin, are you seeing my Zoom controls or no on the screen? And that would be great if you're not. I am, and I just didn't want that to be blocking people's views. So does it say like your screen sharing is stop sharing, or is that invisible to everybody?
I think that's invisible to everyone.
Awesome. Okay, that's the answer that I wanted. Okay, so I'm in my new Totara 13, and I'm in as a site admin, and I think today we'll stay as a site admin. And right here, I have a dashboard. So right away, home now is going to be the My Learning dashboard, or the dashboard that the user is being directed to, maybe by either the multi-tenant rules that we'll get into, or the audience rules too. So right here, one big change is there's a block here where you can choose to have what view of your current learning. So in the past, that was sort of like a list or a row of different ones. Now you can opt to have tiles of your current courses and what percent is done. So that's kind of visually neat. You can embed reports from your report builder. I have a badge up here, the featured links block. I've used a lot on this particular dashboard. And what we're going to do is go across these controls to start out with. And then I have some more slides of things that are sort of different, that are behind the scenes. Okay. So the first place that a learner will come to is the home. And then the next one is learn. And so in learn, we have three things: your library, record of learning, and find learning. So let's go to your learning first. And this, your learning right now and find learning, right now, they also repeat up here. We're actually looking at Totara Engage. So if you didn't purchase Engage, this wouldn't be visible here. And what's showing here are resources that we can do. Um, and then I can also look at playlists. Playlists are a group of learning. Or here I have my working remotely. And because I'm the designer, I can add more resources. So resources might be a podcast, it might be a website, it might be an internal document. They're not as long as a course. And you can put these resources together, and it's a lot more social in how it feels. And then people can rate them, they can comment. You've got kind of this isn't working because ours isn't so used yet, but it will start kind of acting like Netflix, where it's going to relate different resources that are similar, that people, based on their history and what they're clicking on, might be interested in. So that is my library. Um, then record of learning would be in the LMS part, and that shows kind of our formal learning right here. So we have right now it's showing what courses I have, but it is also showing two things that are not tracked. It's showing two work groups that I'm a part of, and we'll go through those in a little bit and engage, but those are also being shown as my record of learning or things that I'm working on, and that's more of the informal learning. We also have evidence, which Totara 12 had, but it's a little different in 13. And now what you can do as the site admin is you can talk about what types of evidence that you will accept. And then you can also make a workflow. Like, does somebody need to check that off? Are there questions that you're going to ask? One of the questions I asked is when would it be created? And so there's more reporting and more things you can do with the evidence bank as well. Okay. And notice that evidence bank opened up under develop. Develop really has a lot to do with perform. So a lot of these things would not appear if you did not have Totara perform. Okay, so you can kind of see how everything's like interconnected. It's really kind of interesting. They're really not three separate things. They all work together. Then just like 12, we have the find learning. I think some differences, and here's the content marketplace where you can purchase additional courses. But some things that you can see that are different is now we have playlists. And so I have a working remotely playlist of resources, or just individual resources that are available to you too. And remember, these aren't formal courses. These are resources that might be shared by the community. They might be curated and so on. So that is all under Learn, your library, record of learning, find learning. Now we're going to switch over to Collaborate, which is really the Totara Engage engine. So let's go to find workplaces first. So whoever is curating and making these, and it could be your members, it could be somebody who's given the role of managing these, can create workplaces, and these are collaborative. So right now I have two. I've joined them both. I'll go to work environment. So a workplace has, first of all, the front page are discussions or things that the group is discussing, and different people can start discussions and search discussions. So it's very collaborative. Could be a project you're working on. For my example, I wanted to know with COVID how my company is feeling about working remotely and what we could do as a company to make that better. And then I started pulling resources that I thought might be helpful for this change. And they could be, some of them are blogs, some of them are short online courses that were free, and so on. And so what people can do is view them. So this is just a course on LinkedIn. If they like it, they can they can share it with others, they can comment on it, and they can see related learning as the engine picks up things from the meta tagging that they would have in common. Okay, so then I can see who my members are, and you can manage those members if you wanted to. What else? Oh, you can have also in here surveys are another thing that you can survey the group. And I think I did create one of those, like a poll. Do you work from a remote office or from home? And so then nobody's taken my survey yet, but then I'd be able to see the results and we can kind of collaborate and work with this. Any question on the Totara Engage piece about workplaces or anything? Erin, did anybody post any questions that I should address yet?
Nothing came in
Okay.
on chat or the Q&A.
Okay. All right. Yeah. All right. So this is sort of the formal learning. I'd say collaborate is more the informal collaborative learning. Develop is going to be Totara Perform. And like I said, I think that we will do a much deeper dive. And I do have one screenshot shown and some recommendations for Perform because it's so big, it needs its own webinar, really. But you can see, like you had before, if you're a manager and you have direct reports, you can see learning plans, their profile, what live things they've signed up for, their record of learning, if they had any old appraisals or reviews, 360-degree feedback, goals, required learning, evidence of learning, and now there's going to be performance data dashboards. And I'll show you a screenshot of that a little bit later. Okay. Also, there, just like there was in 12, but I think the UI is a little nicer. You can have company goals and personal goals, competencies, and they can be self-assigned or assigned to a learner. Now, activities. Activities means this is kind of has to do with the whole mindset that before you kind of had everything around that appraisal, but now the platform has a lot more activities that you might do more often instead of that once a year review. And one of the things is a lot more frequent check-ins. You can do the 360 review things, you can gather evidence, you can work towards goals, you can have communication. So the system will be, has all these tool sets where you can configure it to how your organization does performance management. And you can use the tools to make your own workflows. You might, for example, have certain assessments where people first need to read some documentation and then they need to demonstrate that they can do it in front of a manager. And now the tools can be configured to allow that. And you can upload evidence, you can have people check off things, and so on. We'll get into this a little bit more in some of my slides. And like I said, it really needs your own, and then we have the evidence bank that we looked at a little bit more, its own webinar, because it's quite a large topic and how this has been reimagined, I would say. Okay. Totara 13 also has a report builder. Now, certain parts will have, like if you don't get engaged, then the engaged reports aren't available to you and so on. So again, I think the UI is better. Right now I have 3 of these because I think it will show your 5 most reports that you use most often. And I only have 3, so it just kind of put these in as placeholders. But you can configure your own reports. They also, I think the UI for making graphs of the reports is much easier. And then embedding those reports and graphs around the system in blocks is easier. Another change with reports is you can change the colors in the reports and kind of color code things or make it easier to read as well. So that would be the last part of the out of the box default. Now remember, you can customize these tabs and hide them or add other things. So now I'm going to run back to my PowerPoint and I'm going to talk about some back end things that are to harder to show. So I know we didn't do as much with Perform this time because it's so large, but if you have Totara Perform, everybody will have a competency profile that's very visual, and it will look like this, and it will have what competencies you're working towards and graphs on how you're doing. So it's very visual for the learner and for the manager. Again, I think that I would define Totara Perform as a really, really powerful toolbox. And out of the box, it doesn't look like much because you need a use case to start building these performance tools, right? And so, what I would recommend, and we're going to go into this further, is there are free Totara courses that are excellent in the Totara community called the Totara Academy. And this course, I would highly recommend, even if you don't have it yet, to understand the thinking behind Totara Perform. So it's called Introduction to Continuous Performance Management. And in this course, they really don't go into the specifics. There are other courses on how to work with all the tools. Instead, they're talking about how you could get continuous performance management going in your organization. And if that resonates with you, then Totara Perform would be a really good fit. And they have really good use cases of organizations and scenarios of how you would use Perform. And you kind of need that before you can move ahead because every organization is different. Every organization measures performance differently, and you're going to have to use the tools to make your workflows from that. So in our next webinar, what we're going to do is have it from a learner perspective and then from a manager perspective and kind of go through some sample use cases that might be similar to what a lot of organizations have. Okay, Erin, any questions so far?
Yes, I was just going to interject.
Awesome.
I don't know the answer to this. Claudia asks, it looks like Totara Perform is more for internal HR departments than external organizations providing training. Is that sort of your assessment of Totara Perform's use?
Yes and no. Out of mostly, I'd say Claudia is 90% right. I could see a use case where for example, I was part of an organization called COSIN, which was the Consortium of School Networking, and I did an internship. And they had different certifications that you could move towards, and there were different competencies you had to have to be like a master IT administrator of a school district, let's say. And something like this might be kind of cool because some of it had to be observable and some of it you had to upload evidence from your own school district that you had done certain things and certain security things that you had implemented and so on. And the external evaluator would mark them off and say, yes, you have this competency. And so something like that could be very great in a nonprofit if you're giving certificates like that and people have to demonstrate competency in different areas. This would be a great tool. But I would say 90% of the time it's going to be more of an HR tool for sure. Okay, great question. Multi-tenancy. Okay. So first of all, a lot of you are using multi-tenancy in Totara 12, and that can still be done in Totara 13. And the way we do it is with a lot of tools. So we use dashboards and we use audiences and we have audience-based catalogs and audience-based dashboards and audience-based themes and so on. Well, you could continue that in 13, but also now is more of a true, easier to use multi-tenancy. Okay. And a tenant would be, if you're clueless to what I'm talking about, is let's say you are an organization that trains banks and you want each bank to have its own identity, and maybe they purchase a different package of courses that they will have, or maybe like a savings and loan has one kind of courses and a regular tradition bank has a different, or something like that. Well, you can create different tenants, and different tenants can have different themes, different branding, different course content, different reports that only have their tenant. And you can do all that with 12 as well, just using the audience and sorting through things. Um, in the multi-tenant, which you could do with 12 too, you can have like different tenants, but you can also have an area that everybody is accessible. So maybe there's some training that's universal that everybody should have access to. So Totara introduced some new roles that are kind of cool. So you could have a tenant user manager. And so they only see the users in their tenant and they can manage them, suspend them, make their own audiences in there, do things like that. You can also have a tenant domain manager, so they only see their area of the platform. Okay. And then the learners are a tenant member. Now, they can only be assigned to one tenant that they're a member of, but they can be a participant in other tenants if you allow it. Okay. So maybe that does or doesn't work with your use case. If it doesn't, you can go back to the Totara 12 way of using audiences to control who has access to what too. There are also in the report builder now, there are tenant report templates already set up for you that you can customize. And you would only see the tenant that you're assigned to and the data for that. But you could also do that through filtering with the audiences in 12 too. So, any questions about multi-tenancy? I think it just makes it a little simpler to make a multi-tenant environment than it is with the backend setup through audiences.
One question. So just to, I think that the answer to this is yes, but the tenant manager is specific to Totara 13, correct?
Yeah, these are new roles that come into 13. However, remember in Totara, things are so flexible and configurable. What you can do is, and like Erin's just done this with one client, is you can make categories and make people only have access to one based on things in their profile. You can make up roles because you can clone a role and then take away permissions. And so you can kind of achieve the same thing on the back end. But this makes it a little bit easier if you don't quite have the knowledge base that Erin and I do, who works with Totara every day. This is a little bit easier because the tools and the roles are already set up for you, and you don't have to use audiences and roles and categories as much because it's out of the box, ready to roll. Okay. Great questions, by the way. Keep them coming. Makes a better webinar when people ask questions. All right, so the theme platform has changed, and that's both good and bad, I think. I think none of us like it when we have to change our theme, but we're going to be talking about the advances in mobile technology. So it kind of had to keep up with changes in browsers and mobile devices and what you can do offline and things like that. So it does have a new theme. I guess, a new theme platform that it works off of. So that means that everybody's theme right now will not just automatically magically upgrade if you're in 12. Okay. So it will require us to do a little bit of theme work. And there is a Ventura theme. That's what I was showing. we recommend for happy upgrades and so on, you would maybe we would make a child theme of Ventura and customize that for you with CSS and different tools. Okay. So everything works the same as far as you can still brand it your own way, choose your own colors, your fonts, your heading styles, your block shapes, your icons. And we do that with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript within the Ventura theme, is what we're recommending. And it's responsive, so it knows what device you're on and resizes to that. And the other thing that I wanted, I just threw in here at the last second before the webinar. I didn't know where else it went. It's not exactly a theme thing, but there is a new block that you can use, and it's kind of cool. It's sort of that Netflix thing again, where it looks at what learning you've done, and it will pull resources or courses that it thinks that would fit, like Netflix recommended for you. And you can have a recommended learning block that uses algorithms to recommend learning. And that can go on their dashboard if they want. So I think that's pretty cool too. So,
One question on themes came in.
sure.
Is it possible to choose a theme in Totara 12 that will minimize the work involved in rolling that over to 13?
Not really. It's a really different one. So most themes in 12 use the roots and the basis theme, and those are not going to work in 13. So that is maybe one of the painful parts of upgrading, and maybe why people might decide not to do it right away. The way eClass for Learning would handle this is, if you were interested in 13, we would set up a test environment. We would upgrade it, put it in the Ventura theme, and work on your theme and get your approval and co-work with you till you liked it. Then we would do the production upgrade, and we would know exactly, so on day one it looks the way you want it to. But yeah, that would be one thing you have to be aware of, in order to get some of the cool mobile things we're going to talk about. The theme technology had to change. The old themes just simply will not work, unfortunately. Yeah. So that would be one of the minuses of moving ahead. Okay. The other thing that's kind of cool is there is virtual room integration. And right now, we're able to do that with configuring plugins, but it's sort of a little more difficult. Now, virtual rooms are integrated in the platform. You don't need a plugin, and they're easier to set up. And so there are two virtual room integrations. Zoom. And so this is kind of what it would look like. You either click host a meeting or join as an attendee. Then what happens is it talks to your Zoom, and the Zoom meeting you set up in Totara will actually show up in your Zoom platform. But that means that users wouldn't necessarily have to have a link. They could come right in through the platform, and the systems talk. So that's kind of cool. The other kind of integration that's built in is Microsoft Teams. So that's now part of the core platform. And again, you can achieve that in 12 with our help, but now it's built in. And there are two ways that the Microsoft Team integration works. One is for the webinar technology, but the other is it can work with Engage. So if you house resources in your Microsoft Teams area, and people use that to collaborate and so on, you can grab resources out of Teams and make a quick playlist, and they can work together. And so you wouldn't have to like re-upload your stuff, and they can talk that way. So it can work with Engage as well. So any questions?
We did have one come in. For virtual rooms, can you use multiple accounts or just one?
I believe it's just one. So it would be your organization's Zoom or your organization's Microsoft Team. But all those people that have an email with that organization can set up a team room or whatever. So, yeah, but if you're an organization that has lots of people, like a nonprofit, then it's going to be with the organization's Microsoft team, and they could set up a Microsoft Teams, let's say, webinar, but you have to be from the organization that it's hooked up to set it up. But people can attend if they're not part of your organization, if that makes sense. Yeah. Good question. Okay. Anything else on that? Okay. Um, so the mobile app, I think, is a real game changer. You can run your SCORM right now in Totara 12 on like your phone, and that will work, but you have to obviously be online. Now the mobile app works so that somehow, I'm not quite sure how, but you can do your SCORM work offline. So you can go to your course, and if you don't have mobile access, you can continue to work through that module. And let's say you're at your son's basketball game and there's no internet, and you can work on that. And then when you come back online, it uploads your work into Totara, which I think is just wild. So, I have one client too where people are out in the field and may not have internet access. They might be waiting for a part or something, and they could do online learning without being connected to the internet and keep learning. So, I think that's a real game changer and really something that's different in Totara 13. So any questions on that one? Okay. Open badges. Okay, Totara 12 had badges, and it was doing open badges with Mozilla Backpack. But that Mozilla Backpack got is no longer. So Mozilla dropped it. So then Totara dropped it. Well, now Totara has, in 13, rejoined the Open Badges Consortium. And we're going to do a webinar on this too. If you're not sure what I'm talking about, you can totally award badges in Totara 12 or 13, but users can have what's called a backpack online outside of Totara, where they can put all of their learning badges from different organizations and show their learning in that place, and it can be verified. Okay. And so what happens is there are several organizations, like Badger is one, but there are others. I think Credly is another. And you can set up your Totara. Now, you can only set it up with one badging open ID platform. So let's say we went with Badger, we can pull that down in the site admin and say that's going to be our open badges platform. So then when a user gets a badge, and again in 12 and 13, you can get that at the site level or you can get it at the course level. Now the user has a badge area, and it will be connected to the backpack open ID that you chose for your system. And the each badge will have, you can either download it and upload it, but you could also just push it by clicking add to backpack, and the user's backpack on that platform, they have to set that up, it'll automatically push the badge. But all of this information then comes with that badge, and if you wanted to, you can verify that information with that badging authority. And by the email of the person issuing it, if you verified that badge, then it's a verifiable badge. Okay. And then people can show that, and it has like, then it's like you have credentials that mean something there. Okay, so users can choose which badges they want to push to their backpack, and then all of that information comes over automatically with the backpack to the open badging platform that you chose. So that is in 13. And Okay. Some other improvements that I think you should be aware of. So audiences are still there, but there are more choices now if for rules if you're creating a dynamic audience. So now you could do if they're a member of a certain tenant, if they have indirect reports, if they have temporary reports, if they have people they're doing reviews for, when they were enrolled in a course. So, those are some of the new rules that you can apply to a dynamic audience, which is cool. And all the old ones are there too. So, the seminar continues to get cooler and cooler. And so now, you could have a seminar, right? And then you could have different sessions in 12. Well, now we can track the attendance at the session level much better. We can bulk upload attendance if we wanted to. We can add facilitators. We can have multiple rooms in a sessions, like breakout rooms. And we can separate grades from attendance. And that's probably another area that we should do a webinar on, and get more into the nitty gritty of what's new in seminars. Okay. Um, the last thing that I want to talk about is the Totara Academy. If you haven't been to it, I'm going to show you how to get there. And there's a great course. I took it to get ready for this webinar, and it's really good. And even if you don't have Totara 13 and you're interested in it, you can take it for free. So the Totara community is free. If you haven't joined, you should. Even if you don't have Totara, anybody is welcome to join. And it is such a cool resource. I go there every day. Once you have an account, you can log in and it looks like this. It'll tell you what upcoming webinars and things about the platform, the roadmap. You can have forums for help or advice. But I love the Academy. And these are free courses you can take that will support you. And so this one, Totara 13, new and improved features. I've already enrolled. There'll be an enroll button. Once you're enrolled, there are sub courses in here of different things that are new in 13, and you can take a deeper dive. So if you're trying to think about performance management, or dashboards and basic theming or appraisal or competencies, you can go here how to make a playlist and kind of see more how the features work. And they have really great videos and really great how to's. So I would definitely recommend the Academy. If you join Totara Community, send us an email and we'll link to you. That way, if you put a question in a forum or something like that, we will be alerted and we can also help answer that. Um, and the final thing, here is my contact information. I'll ask Erin if there's more questions. If you have ideas for a future webinar on things that would help you implement Totara more, or things you want to understand better or see, put that in the chat or send us an email. We would love to get your feedback on what kind of webinars would be helpful to you. So, Erin, any other questions that came up?
No, no more questions.
Okay. Well, thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming. Those of you that are clients, and many of you signed up, I think every client that uses Totara signed up. So we were really thrilled about that. I'm going to next week do a follow-up phone call with you. And it's not to pressure you into Totara 13 at all. It's more to talk about what are the pros and cons of moving now and would it make sense and what questions do you have for your use case? Because everybody's got different customizations, different themes, different use cases. Would perform work for us? Would it not be such a good idea? And I really want to have those kinds of conversations with you, and get your individual questions answered, because that's the neat thing about Totara. It's very flexible and very tailored to what you need it to be. And then how does Totara lay on top of that? And how does that work in your use case? So great. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good rest of your day. And Erin, thank you. Tomorrow, I'll be getting the link out to all of you. So have a good rest of the day. All right.